Mm-hmm.
Why are you not pressing record? Hello and welcome. My name is Vicky Boucher and this is A Wealthy Life. And today I want to introduce you to a longtime friend, a longtime mentor, Tom Evans. He's an author, musician, magician, everything. But what I really want to pick up on here is that Tom ended up being a landlord. And although it was never in his plan, and in fact, we had a conversation where he firmly declared that he didn't want to be a landlord, what Tom has achieved through the combination of, if you like, physical property portfolio and an intellectual property portfolio has enabled him to create meditations that have literally supported the mental well-being of millions of people globally. And his philanthropic energy has enabled him to donate these meditations, but at the same time, they are still income generating and supporting him so that he can carry on giving, which I think is absolutely fascinating. And Tom and I spoke a long time when I was creating my fifth book, A Wealthy Life, The Revolutionary Guide to Living the Rest of Your Life in Style, about these principles and the importance of legacy. And so that's really why I wanted to get Tom on, so that we could have this conversation about philanthropy maybe, but legacy very definitely. Tom, absolutely warm welcome to you. Lovely to see you and speak to you.
Oh, and thanks for such warm words as well. You can forget very easily what you've achieved or what's been put in your path, and it's nice to have that sort of summary and reminder. Thank you.
My pleasure. And I'm quite sure I've missed out about 5,000 things that you've done as well. So let's have this chat about legacy and what legacy means to you, and maybe the journey that you went on from, as you said, I think it was a burnt out middle-aged music producer. You had a midlife crisis there when you used to work for the BBC, to now where you're in a position living in a beautiful home out in the middle of the countryside, and anybody watching the video will see you sitting in the, if you like, your business hub, the heart of your business, with your microphone, your keyboards are just out of sight, your guitar's in the background, where you make your meditations, where you create your courses, where you work with your clients. How did this path appear?
Well, I think you're right to say it's a path that appeared, because you couldn't design this. It's kind of a dream existence, really, and you can't design that dream existence. In fact, my latest course on this free app that I'm contributed to is called Your Soul Path, and it's how you get the path to be shown to you, and that I can only deliver that course having it happen to me. And so I guess the journey for me was one of similar to many people. You get to your mid-40s. I was in a quite high pressure commercial environment, going through my second business exit. I did quite well out of both exits, so that generated a bit of money. I think when we first met, you met somebody that was asset rich, but because we had a big house in Surrey that had generated a lot of cash, but we couldn't access it, so we were actually poor and we didn't have many liquid assets. And I guess it was that realization that we didn't need to be living in such a big house when there's just two of us and two dogs. But also we had elderly parents that were in care homes, and they were in the transition. Really, was they were in a care home in London. And we found it was much cheaper to have them out in the sticks. But we also my mother, we owned my mother's house, and she passed away, and we thought, what we're going to do with that money. And then we found a way of investing it. We invested it in what we thought was a holiday home, and we decided to go the eco route. And we ended up moving into that eco home, and moving my in-laws out of their very expensive care home in London out into Wiltshire, and that freed up a massive amount of cash. At the same time, I needed to free up time to look after them and what have you, and so it's pretty much at that point. No, I wasn't quite at the point then. I was still trading time for money, so I was still mentoring people and that sort of stuff. But I'd always had this dream where I could just work creatively on my own stuff, which is an author's dream. But it takes a long time to build up the royalties, So I wrote my first book, I think, nearly 15 years ago, and I've written nearly at least a book a year since then. But
You
I
are
guess
prolific.
indeed. Well, one of the things I discovered, because when I did this transition from board IT consultant working in this high stress environment, someone said to me, you should start meditating. And my first reaction was, well, I haven't got time to meditate, and I couldn't mind off. But I persisted, and I learned the techniques. And then I started to see the benefits in my own life. The first is that the 10 minutes I invested in meditation every day, I got back in spades over the day. And I started to write about it. I started to make it the subject of my books. But the magic was that I then started to say, well, rather than writing theoretically about it, here's a meditation that gets you into that state. So you can actually experience the consciousness state that I was writing about. And that was the real magic, because they got discovered in about 2016 by this app, Insight Timer. And that's what made the transition. So that they had something which is a dream. And this is what I mean about your path showing itself to you, is that marketing is always difficult when you've written a book, as you know, because what you really want is the readers of the book or the listeners of the book to promote it for you. And so my view of marketing my book was to write another book, and then write another book, and write another book, and that wasn't really getting anywhere. And in fact, still my royalties from my books are a trickle, not a flood, but they open doors. And when the meditations that accompanied my books got discovered, the Insight Timer people then had about 10 million people on the app. They've now got over 30 million, I think. And that gave me the global audience, which I didn't have.
It's fascinating. And I think one of the words I want to pull out that I don't think because you're using the word path, and I spoke, I think, back about a month ago, episode 42, and it was called 3 Reasons You'll Never Be Happy. And one of them was about opportunities, and that we only see an opportunity when somebody else sees it, or a lot of people only see an opportunity when somebody else sees it. And then there's this sort of like jealousy thing, like, oh, you're miserable because somebody else is getting all the opportunities and you're not. But what you've spoken about is solid, consistent work, doing something that you love, something that meant something to you. So starting from the meditations, turning into the books, and do check out Tom's books on Amazon. They are amazing. I have read them all and I love them. And then moving into, if you like, the practical application of that by making the meditations. And then the opportunity came because you could see it. The opportunities are, I know it sounds so corny, but I do feel there are opportunities all around us. But if you don't know what you're looking for, it can be staring you right in the face and you wouldn't see it. And if you hadn't been stressed out and somebody hadn't mentioned meditations, you may not have, to use your word, gone on this path. And therefore that opportunity of Insight Timer and the global audience wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's one thing recognizing that the transition for me was to realize that I thought I was an author with meditations on the side. And then I realized that I was a meditation teacher who's not studied meditation formally with books on the side. But I also know there's more transitions yet ahead. So that's just a phase change, if you like, that gets you to the next stage. And I think the other thing that's important is that this is quite a technical thing, but we actually hear our voice through our bones. So we don't hear the richness of our own voice. So I assume that no one wanted to listen to my voice. And but the feedback I got from Insight Timer from the very first meditation that I uploaded was, one, they liked the British accent. 2, they like my sense of humor, because I'm not worthy, I don't take it seriously, and I like to put a bit of fun in it, make this whole sort of people call it a spiritual journey, but I'm uncomfortable with the word. I make it accessible and fun and practical. And but I think the main thing was they'd like the tonality of the voice. And of course, what helps is having a really high quality microphone and having that experience that I've got as in video and audio production. So I started my life at the BBC, as you say, and so having that sort of technical background, then moving into a creative world where you use all those technical skills is important. And it's really important when you get into your real flow, is to realize everything you've done, even the strange things you've done, like strange jobs you might have had, the strange people you might have met, they all come in as an experience. So as a writer, for example, the stuff I write about is from experience, and also the meditations I create are either things that have helped me in the past, or I meet somebody who says, I've got this problem. You haven't got a meditation for it. A good example was a very successful neighbor of mine in Surrey Village, where we had the big house that we sold that has funded us going forward now. He was going to Rio every week, leaving on Monday, coming back on, no, leaving on Sunday, coming back on Thursday. Non-spiritual guy. And he just said, you haven't got a meditation that can help with my jet lag, because he was coming back, sleeping Friday and Saturday, then going back out to Rio again
Missing
on
everything.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember this this technique that a shaman had told me about. And I came up with a meditation for him, and it fixed his jet lag. Right. And lots of people have used that now. And that's a good example of then saying, no, that's really useful. So with that meditation came more confidence to fix other problems. And rather than trying to create a set of meditations around a theoretical, wouldn't this be nice kind of thing, to put them very firmly in the real world. We could put together a meditation, if you like, for success as a landlord. If that's a presenting issue, and there's enough people that want to listen to it, so
I've listened to your meditation, and there's a little series just for today, which were emails that you used to send out, and then meditations came off the back of those as well. So I want to look, because you've talked about making meditation very practical and accessible. I want to look at how this idea of legacy and philanthropy and being in a very privileged position to be able to give back. And the reason that you can give back is that because you're okay here. And can we get down and dirty with the money side of things now? So you started off with when we were first talking about property. So, oh goodness, I think I probably met you in something like 2007. I reckon it was around that time. And in the early 20 teens, we would have been talking, and you did some courses, and I did personal mentoring with you and did some courses and worked through with those with you. So I've experienced your teachings. And then we got on to a conversation, because I then came on your podcast, The Zone Show, and we did something about abundance. We then started talking about money, and that realization that you were extremely wealthy in this big house, but both you and your wife needed to work in order to make money to pay the electricity bill to buy food, or take care of the dog vet bills, that sort of thing. And so while you were rich on one level, and yes, you were happy and rich in that way, you weren't in control of your own time. And the only way to change that round was to get yourself into a position where you could create income so that you could not have to work, so some form of passive income. And that's where we were talking about the intellectual property, because you didn't want to go the landlord route, but then also to manage the way that you lived. And it might sound odd, no, I didn't tell you to sell your multi-million-pound house in Surrey and go and live in a shed in Wiltshire, and that very much isn't what you did. But you did build an eco house, which then overall reduced all your outgoings and everything else, and then created another asset. But if you like, the expenses, once it was up and running, were more manageable then in terms of your income. And I think Louise, your wife, then stopped work when you moved out to Wiltshire, didn't she? If I've got that.
Yeah, which is sort of pre-COVID as well. So some of that was related to looking after aged parents-in-law and that sort of stuff. But I think the again, what happened was by accident inverted commas, we met this chap who was an eco house expert, and he built the house next to us on the same plot. And what we discovered then was actually how to reduce your bills. We built two houses which were EPC, and we didn't know at the time, and this is very significant now. I think what put us off being a landlord was all the maintenance you might have to do and stuff like that. One, they're brand new houses. Two, they're very low energy. And three, this makes then the tenant very happy. So the tenant loves living in this environment. And touch wood, there's not a lot to go wrong because it's all very new. And the technology is there's no boiler, there's no underfloor heating and this sort of stuff. It's just heating of air using this system called an MVHR, mechanical ventilation heat recovery, which also is coming into play now because electricity bills have gone up. It's got solar panels on the roof, which keeps it going. It's a very healthy way to live as well. So there's no mold, there's no damp, there's no condensation. So all the things that a lot of people are suffering from, as we are now in the current house, which we're about to total and refurb and what have you, we've got mold, we've got damp, we've got all of those things. Like a lot of people had, and we got high electricity bills and we've got oil. We're going to take all of those things out over the next year because of the learning that we had building this house from scratch. It's slightly more difficult doing a refurb. It's painful because you've got to pay VAT, which is really annoying and galling when you try to do the right thing.
Yes.
But we didn't know at the time that we were doing all of these things against this background where the world is suffering, and that's why I think this is where there's a nice balance here between the practical things that we're doing and also the more philanthropic things I've ended up doing as well. And it's almost like I put the energy into the philanthropy before I was getting paid for it. So there was a bit of upfront investment in terms of giving all this stuff out. I think must be over 6 or 7 million listens to my meditations, free listens to my meditations. And Louise, my lovely wife, says, if you had just $1 for each one of those, then it'd be a different scenario. But the karmic bank is huge. And I think that what happens is then everything you need in your physical life gets delivered for you. The location we're living in now, the knowledge we have of how to change this house from a leaky 1960s bungalow into a really modern conventional eco house, and then all the other things that you need aside from that, just the money that you've got coming, because we've got nice rental income coming from the eco house, touch wood again, for little or no maintenance. It just sort of sits there and churns. And all we've got to do is change some filters every 3 months, or some air filters. That's pretty much it. And but all the things you need then to keep this philanthropy going seem to come your way.
But I think you said it in before when we were having our little chat before we turned the microphone on, which was you have to work. What did you say? You have something like you got to work hard in order to never have to work or something.
I like that phrase. It takes all your life to be an overnight success.
Yeah, that's yes, absolutely. But I think that's the key thing, isn't it? And I know that we've spoken about thousands of hours of thoughts between us, and for me, when you're thinking about the 5 principles of a wealthy life, and a wealthy life is a life where you can choose to do what matters to you most with the people that you care about, or do the things that you love with the people you care about, whatever phraseology, but it's doing what you want with the people that you want to do it with or do it for. And that's very much the life that you're living now. You're living a wonderful life with your wife, and you're able to express the creativity in you for the benefit of basically everybody on the globe, which is just, that's the sort of thing that really needs to go on a tombstone. I mean, wow, what a life to be living. But that is the result of, even if we just talk about when we first met as a backstop to when it might have started, it will have started long before that. But say, 2007 to now, we're talking some 15 years. So some 15 years of work have gone into where you are now. And in 2007, you wouldn't have known that this specific place was where you were going to be, but you did know that you had the creativity in you. You were starting to see that there might be something around meditations. As you said yourself, you thought you were an author, and now you know that you are someone who shares meditations with books on the side. So the sandwich can turn upside down, the filling can slightly change, you might change the bread, or you might add a relish to it or take a relish out, but effectively you've been on this journey, and all of the experiences, even on the journey, are adding to what actually will be the very end, that we don't know where that is, because that's still further down the line. I find that fascinating, that you can have a plan without potentially knowing what the plan is, which I suppose takes us right back to you and what you're saying. You've got a course at the moment which is about enabling yourself to find your path. And I think that's what I want to encourage people to do, to find their path, and to hear a story from someone like you who's gone from corporate, looked at the physical assets that you had, looked at the resources that you weren't tapping into, and then now you've created something, and you're not even retired yet, but you've been basically retired from work for years because you're choosing to do what you want to do.
Well, it's a shift. Yeah, you're right. It's a shift from, I don't now have to trade time for money. I've got I think I only got one client at the moment. I've got a lady who wants some mentoring next week, and I'm in the position which I could say to her, you tell me what the value is of spending an hour with me, and you pay that much money. I don't need that money anymore. And I always find out when I do in these mentoring sessions, there's always something that comes bi-directional from it anyway. So but going back to the point about finding the path, it's really important to set the conditions up to allow the path to find you. So I didn't know I had this voice that people like to listen to. I knew I had a sense, I knew I could write really well. And actually all I'm really doing is writing now. So I do everything through audio first. So I'm writing my 19th book at the moment. I'm taking 2 years to do it. It's called The Book of Overstanding, and I'm delivering it on a personal with a personal mentoring system called The Path of Overstanding. And this is the keys of how the path can be shown to you, which is kind of interesting. So first thing is that the path is different for everybody. So don't just follow what I do. It's all these property gurus that stand up and say, oh, do this. The world that I live in is different. It's different for everyone. I can show you some of the things that work, but I know that this is very specific to me, and each one of us on the planet, each 8 billion, I think now, is on the planet. We've all got a slightly different path, but there are some principles which are fundamental, which is the pay it forward principle. Pay it forward. Have nothing but good thoughts. As Thumper in Bambi says, if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. All of those sort of wonderful truisms. And as you say, I every day I send out a just for today, do this, just for today, do that thing, which is wonderfully illustrated through another lady who found me, Siri Opley, who's a meditation teacher and artist as well. So all of these things have found me that all the stuff that enables me to do what I do has found me. I've not found it. And had I gone out to find it, it would have been harder than allowing it to just come in. And as soon as we finish this recording, I'm recording 4 new tracks, and I don't call them meditations anymore. I call them meditales, because they take people on a journey from A to B. So imagine if you're in position A, by the time you finish listening to it, you'll be at position B. Now that position B will be different for everyone that listens to it. And so I didn't realize that when I put these courses together, someone said, oh, I just got rid of that headache. Oh, I've just had this a wonderful career opportunity just land on my lap. So the same meditation can generate, or the same meditale can generate a different outcome for different people depending on where they are. The main thing is you just allow the mind to go quiet for a while, allow the world around you to go quiet. So then you can spot the opportunity and spot the difference in your world. Oh, my headache. Oh, this amazing coincidence has happened. And people comment on I get about 2,000 listens a day when people comment and whatever. I can see what they're saying and what the changes. That sometimes encourages me to say, oh, I didn't realize I could do that. Or I didn't realize that meditation had that result. So I'll then generate something which is doing it specifically, like the jet lag meditation. All my meditations would actually reduce jet lag because they reduce stress, but this one specifically targets that issue. I've got meditations, funny enough, on how to be abundant and how to allow wealth to come your way. There's one called Count Your Riches, and I give that one away for free. I don't need to charge for it. I love it. You might think, oh, some people might put in $100 price tag on that. By consciously giving that one away for free, more money comes my way than I know what to do with, and it's actually just enough money, and it just arrives at the right time as well, which is just magical with zero effort.
There's 2 really important points that I want to pick up there. The first is that we can listen to one another's stories, and you're absolutely right. It's not do exactly what Vicky's done so you can have Vicky's life. It's not do exactly what Tom's done to have Tom's life. And you couldn't do exactly what I'd done or what Tom's done anyway, because we've done it and it was our lives, not your lives. So you can't go back and recreate it. But even don't try and create my life or Tom's life, because that might not make you happy. But what you can do is, as Tom said, with a meditation, it might cure your headache or give you a job opportunity by listening to this. What insight are you getting out of this? What are you hearing here that you can now apply to your life? That the opportunities are around us, as I said back in that previous episode I mentioned, and I'll put the link in the bottom here. You know, there are opportunities all around us, and if you know roughly the direction you want to head in, maybe when you look back, you won't have gone to exactly that place that you were thinking that you wanted to get to, but you will have get to where you are quicker because you thought you wanted to get to somewhere. So that was one thing. And then the other thing you said, you know, the money comes in is just enough. And I use that language as well, that we need to have enough money to cover our basics, to make sure that we've got a roof over our head. And of course, we're driven by everything being warm at the moment, but, you know, either warm or cool, but certainly not damp and moldy, that we've got food in our bellies and shoes on our feet and all of that sort of stuff. And then what we can do is we can have more than enough. And more than enough enables you to, I don't know, buy that new phone that you want, or have that holiday, that mini break that you want, or, you know, buy your Christmas gifts. It's the bits around the top that are the icing on the cake, if you like. And if you want to, I'm not stopping you in any way. You can have much more than enough if you want, but know that you have enough. And if you don't appreciate and you're not grateful that you have enough, how will you ever know that you have more than enough or much more than enough? And if you don't know that, then you won't see the opportunities. You won't ever feel wealthy. You can be really rich as far as a bank account is concerned, and then really miserable, still trading your time for money, because you don't see that time is actually the most important thing that you have, and having the freedom to choose how to spend it, maybe how to help others, or maybe simply to enjoy time with your family. Like you took a point in your life where, because things all moved round and those opportunities were there for you, you were able to take the time to be with your older relatives. You were able to move them to somewhere that made it more affordable, so that you could change your life, so that you could then spend the time. And I remember you spend a lot of time with older family and wider family, and even now you still spend time, because you've got quite a large family, with family. That's such a valuable thing to do. How can you measure that against a bank account? You know,
Well,
spending time with a parent that's only got so long on the earth. How many pounds is that, or dollars is that, compared with, you know, something else you might spend your time on? It's
let's talk about time. So, time's important. So, as you know, I've got lots of meditations that help you control the speed of time. And one, I noticed that when I started meditating, I got the time back in spades. It's thought that every minute you spend in meditation, you get back in terms of living weller for longer. So you get that back in terms of your well-being. But I discovered how to control the speed of time, and actually to play with time. So when I do, when I write, when I record, and when I create my music, I create this, get into this state called extended me time. And so several things happen as a result of that. One is you get everything done with less stress, and it gets done to a higher quality. But then the other thing that happens is if you go around your day with a quieter mind, so you're less flustered, and meditation is not about having no thoughts at all. It's about actually understanding your thoughts and having a different relationship with your thoughts. What happens is this thing called JIT, which is just in time. Things that you didn't know that you needed rock up just when you need them, slightly before you knew you needed them. And then you start to realize, yeah, I didn't know that eco house knowledge was going to be really useful right now. I didn't realize that builder I met down the pub was the bloke I needed to do my roof and this sort of stuff. And everything you need in your life just rocks up by this investment of 10 minutes a day in meditation. So, you might think, well, meditation and property, running a property empire have got nothing to do with each other. Meditation is fundamental to just living a more blissful life, no matter what you're doing. So if we all meditated a bit more every day, we'd live in a calmer world. And that's why I love the mantra behind Insight Timer. They're the only absolutely free app on the planet where you don't have to give a credit card just to get going, and you get 30 days free and all that sort of stuff. They're absolutely free. And their mantra is to get the whole world meditating one person at a time. And I'm just so honored to be one of the teachers on the app. There's about 6,000 or 7,000 teachers on the app. And I know I'm in the sort of top echelon of about 100 teachers. And that you can't design that, because I've helped lots of other people get onto the app and what have you. You can't design that, but one thing you can do is keep contributing. So every week I upload a new free bit of content to it. Right.
I just think that's amazing. But it's the combination of the 15 plus years of work that you've done, all the work to be this overnight success where more than 6 million people have listened to you, and that you're able to help them and not need to do it for the money. I think it's fascinating. And it's one of the very first things I ever did with you. We had a whole conversation about how time is really an illusion. It's a construct that, if we can recognize that time is just a construct that we use to communicate with, what time will you and I meet on Zoom in order to have a conversation?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to use this word 10 o'clock as a way for us both to understand what that means, so that we can both be here at the same time, rather than you show up yesterday and I show up this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started to see that, and see that the word time and all the things that come out the back of it were merely a communication tool, then what was this thing called time? It was how I am in this moment. And exactly the same as you do, I wrote these books in a week. All my books I've just written in a week, because what I do is I just decide that nothing's gonna go wrong, no one's gonna need me, this is the perfect time. I even sometimes will plan it in my diary, so I might take out a week next month and just put lines through it and just decide that that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write then. And when I'm in that, and we've used the word before about flow, and when I'm in that flow, I can sit down and I can write 10,000 words a day, end up with 50,000 words at the end of it, put it aside for a week, and then come back to it a week later and then trim it down into the final book. And it's so easy to do. But I also know that when I slip away from the calmness that meditation brings, and then I go to do something like, oh, right, the pressure's on, I've got to record a podcast, and but I've also got to do this and that, and I must do here, and I've got 4 other things in my account, and so the head is all of this. The meditation that I record won't be as good. I might have to like scrap it halfway through and restart it again because I've lost my direction, or not like it as much, and then never publish it. So it's interesting, isn't it, that we can put just one little bit of time in, 1 minute, and get so much more out the back of it by being calmer. And again, I can't believe how much this relates to that podcast. That one I said was the reason we weren't happy is that we're not grateful enough. And so really you can talk about gratitude as being this calm place that we're in. Then I spoke about opportunities. Well, they will appear if you're grateful for what you've got and you know that you've got enough or more than enough, then you're going to see all of these opportunities for you. And the other one was about not comparing, which is you don't need Tom's life or my life. You just need a life that to you feels wealthy and enables you to do what you love with those that matter to you most, or do what matters to you most with those that you love. But you need to have the time freedom to be able to do that, and that does take putting some effort in at some point. And maybe that's about investing in a property portfolio, but it could equally be about investing in an intellectual portfolio. It's within your gift to work this out. And and I would highly recommend that you go listen to Tom's meditations, read his books, and if you are so fortunate to be able to get on his courses, because they have helped me immensely. And thank you, Tom. Just while we're here, let me say thank you again. I just love the idea, when I think about your story, it's that you, in giving things away, you made your books and you published them on Amazon and you got some royalties from them, and then maybe you did a course and you were doing mentoring, which was your job, but you were also doing these meditations and the whole just in times and starting to put them on Insight Timer without any knowledge of I hate to say passive, because it's not passive, because you did the work, but this income that didn't require an instant trade for it. You were doing what you loved over here, and now someone has just turned on a tap and the right amount of money is appearing for you when you need it, so that you can carry on doing the things that you want to do, first being with your family and now continuing to help other people find their paths.
When you think about it, it's a very savvy modern day pension. So what you do with a pension, you take some of your salary and you put it away, and then you hope when you retire that pot will then generate some money for you. All I've done is taken some time, created an intellectual a nugget of content, put it in a bank, in a karmic bank, if you like, and what have you, and then down the line, just when I need the money, it starts to produce revenue. Now that bit of content might not produce revenue, but it connects somebody. Someone listens to it and said, now I want to listen to something else. So they either go buy a book on Amazon or they listen to one of the courses, which is a premium course. And I've got this tiered thing where I've got this massive freemium layer, which is free. That's the thing that I call it electronic flypaper. So people fly along and they stick to it and say, oh, I like that one. I wonder if there's anything else. And now I'd like to invest in. So if that stuff's free, what do I get when I buy one of the low cost products? And my products are like, $10, or a book is $10 or even $5 and what have you. And then there's more expensive stuff. But the most expensive thing I sell is a subscription for $9.99 a month. That compounds. And not many pensions compound.
No.
That the will of the market, depending on what the various rates are doing, what the stocks and shares are doing, but with content, if you keep feeding it at the bottom more and more content, it compounds, and if people keep coming back for more and more, then that revenue compounds. But I'd say only 5% of the people that interact with me, probably even less than that, maybe 1%, actually generate a bit of cash. But going back to the other tenant, which is the tenants, is it's just enough money just when you need it.
Yes.
Probably 10%. You're not making millions and millions. You're just getting about 10% more than you need at any one time.
Yeah, but you've got 100% of your time to choose. You said that you're going to go after this, you're going to record 4 tracks, but that's because you like doing this. This isn't work. This is pleasure and you expressing your creativity. And I think you're absolutely right. When I wrote my books, every book I wrote caused the book before it to suddenly sell more copies, because people find one thing and then they go to the other. And we've got the same with this podcast. But the same comes from the analogy you use there is your intellectual pension. You're putting away your nuggets and then that's compounding for your pension. That is the same with the houses as well. Whether you buy one property now or a series of properties, it's a long-term investment and it pays off. It'll be paying off now, but it'll also be paying off right when you need it. You just don't know when it is that you need it, but getting it now is when you need to get it, so that you've got it for when you need it, whenever that might be, and that'll show up when it's ready. And we did the same thing. I started investing in 2004 and then went big in 2008, and I was buying just as we are now at the start of this global recession or whatever it is that we're talking about, because the fact that you talk about a global recession, I do believe, is half of what causes a global recession. But the interest rates were high, the interest rates were 5%. And I just started investing then. Little did I know that some of those houses would pay for us to do, just like you're about to start on. We did the eco refurbishment of an old house, and you're absolutely right. It is so much harder than just having a plot over there and living somewhere else, and then building it completely from scratch is so much easier. I mean, taking back walls out and trying to prop up the rest of the house so that you can make these throughways and wrap things around. But at the end of it, like you're going to have, we've got it eco insulated, we've got the solar panels, we've even got the rainwater tank, so that when it pours with rain, we've got all the water that we need to be able to water the plants. And bizarrely, the rainwater then flushes our toilet and runs our washing machine. So
same.
yeah, it's not it's very much not a financial, it doesn't make sense. The payback on the rainwater tank doesn't make sense financially, because actually water's fairly cheap. But it's not about the fact that water's cheap, it's the fact that water's scarce. And if we can use grey water when we don't need to be using, I don't know what the real water's called, like fresh water or white water or whatever they call it, we don't need to use drinking water to flush the toilet or wash our clothes. We can just use rainwater to do that. I love the fact that there are so many ways. And isn't that also a way that we can be giving back? You know, if we can make our homes and then any properties that we own more environmentally friendly, they make them better places to live. And that's all I've wanted to do. You talk about wanting to help people find their path because of the experience you've had. And I suppose what I want to do is ultimately, if I take it all the way back, is I want to enable people to live in decent homes. Because someone, I don't know who it was, a man owned a house a long time ago in Brent, and he handed his house over so that it could be rented. And that was the house that myself and my two daughters under 3 moved into when we had nowhere else to live. Mm-hmm. And if that man hadn't shared that house, we wouldn't have had a home. If we didn't have the home, I wouldn't have gone to university, I wouldn't have got a degree, my children wouldn't have gone to the schools, and nothing would be as it is today if it wasn't for that moment. And if I could do that for other families, and I can help other people then also create the life that they want while helping other people have decent lives and decent homes, that's why I love being a landlord and helping people to invest as much as you love the meditation and helping people find their paths.
Well, again, that's a good example of your path was shown to you. You didn't know at the time that your path was being shown to you to allow you to do the stuff that you're doing now. And,
I totally agree. I mean, when you get somewhere, you can look back and you can go, oh, I remember all those conversations with my parents when my grandparents died and what to do with their house. And then I didn't have the language for it then, which is, I think, what's always so interesting. My parents became tenants while they were moving from one place to another. And then I became a social housing tenant. And I didn't know any of this language. And therefore, I couldn't have asked the questions and I couldn't have seen the opportunities because I didn't have the words and the comprehension to grasp it. And then all of a sudden, one moment, a few other pieces came together and I suddenly saw the first word. Well, it's 2 words, property investment. I saw the first time the 2 words went together, property investment. I knew property was, these are all properties and those things are all investments. But to put the 2 things together, suddenly it was like when you pull out the straws in the Kaplunk game, if you know the Kaplunk game, and all of the marbles just dropped down, and it just felt like all of the marbles fell down, everything just fell into place. And I went, and that's the moment that the path is revealed, and it's so exciting. And when you're on it, I don't know, do you feel excited that you're on your path? I mean, I'm daily, I am, and I get overexcited, which is why people go, oh God, she's doing it again. But you know, I am so excited to live the life I live, and so grateful that I can do what I do to help other people, and that I can have conversations with people that open doors that they wouldn't have thought about.
I'd say content rather than excited, and also very confident that anything that I produce is of really high quality and of value to people. I put a small 6-minute meditation called Your Soul Friend out on Insight Timer just this week, and it only went out yesterday. I must have had hundreds of listeners already. And it was just like a little bit of soul warmth to send out for Christmas for people that, you know, that I've not met most of these people on the app, but we feel like that we're soul buddies, if you like. And it was a little bit of warmth I sent, you know, rather than sending a Christmas card out or a Christmas message. It was just a bit of a warmth sending out for Christmas to people. And what inspired it was I noticed that they're having a holiday over Christmas, and if you don't get tracks up by the 16th, they're not going to get published till January. So I thought that's the impetus. So this was like the message. the little nudge to put a little bit of content together. And I got a nudge from somebody to read this book called Anam Cara, Anamcara, and that's Gaelic for soul friend. And I thought, oh, that'd be a lovely theme for a meditation. So I read the book and I just pulled out some of the essence of it and put it into this thing. And again, it's another drop into the ocean, and it makes people content. I'm content that I did it, and it's a good example of there's no money coming from that per se, but it will lead to other things, and it'll create this lovely big wonderful spiral of abundance and soul warmth, which is just so amazing, really. And
I love that. I'm going to find these links, or if you can send me these.
I will do indeed. Yeah,
if you can
yeah.
send me these links, I will stick them in the footnote at the bottom. I think probably ending on Anam Cara.
Anamkara,
Yeah,
yes.
that was I wrote it down. It's like, yes. So I think ending on Anam Cara, a soul friend. I'd
And
like
lovely
to
to
think
have,
of you as a soul friend too,
and
Tom.
likewise, yes, absolutely. You're part of the soul circle.
Yes, very definitely. It's been delightful speaking to you. I love it. I hope other people will find benefit in this. And remember, this isn't about doing what Tom did or doing what I do. It isn't about investing in property or suddenly having to meditate. There's no have to in any of this. But what you're going to have heard over the last 30 minutes will be something that is an opportunity for you. It's a light shining where your path is. Maybe it's an actual opportunity for you to move forward. Maybe it's a lesson, or maybe it's one of those nuggets that's just going to plop back in and it'll pop up in, who knows, maybe next week, maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe it won't even pop up for a year. But this is something that if you get a chance to go back and listen to it again and see if you can identify, what is this podcast for you? Why has this podcast come to you, and what does it mean for you personally? And Tom, will you just share, and we'll still put them in the notes anyway, the link for Insight Timer so people can know where they are, and please also your website address, so if people want to go and, I think that's the easiest place to go for you, to go to your website address and find your books and the things that you do from there. Would you share those links for us, please?
Yeah, so it's tomevans.co.co, and you'll find a tab there, a meditation tab, and that takes you into Insight Timer. But if you go to insighttimer.com/Tom Evans, you'll find me that route as well, and you'll find the freemium stuff there, and then you'll find my courses on Insight Timer that you pay a small subscription for every year. And also on my homepage of my website, you'll find my subscription product, which is the Path to Overstanding. But also, if you just put Tom Evans meditation into Google, I'll come up #1. So that's another investment. So the fact I've been dropping bits of content in for over 15 years means that also, without paying for an SEO consultant, a search engine optimization consultant, my content has been doing the marketing. So I don't spend any time or money actual marketing anymore. I just create content.
That's lovely. It's lovely.
And just to say, why meditate? You live weller for longer.
I love the idea that we can live weller for longer. That's very definitely resonating for me. And time's an illusion. It's a communication tool. And at the same time, it is something very much that you can decide that you can make work for you. And I know that having worked with Tom, that's really helped me find that way, so that you can be productive in those moments that you want to be productive. You can be peaceful in the moments that you want to be peaceful, and you can be excited and wild the rest of the time if that's what you want, or just content if that's what you want. The choice is yours. And hopefully we've provided some doors for you to walk through, some paths for you to follow, some lights to shine the way. Tom, thank you. I'll say thank you again a bit more when we're off, but thank you. I really, really appreciate this. And just to finish off, as I always do, my name's Vicky Boucher. Thank you very much for listening to A Wealthy Life. I hope that I've been able to put a little bit more whoosh into your life, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week.